Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our session today. For those who don't know me, my name is Donisha Smith, and I oversee the Center for Financial Empowerment, which is housed in the county's Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. And if you're new to the CFE, we work to improve the financial health of county residents with an emphasis on Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And we do this by developing cross-sector partnerships, working to build capacity among service providers, and advocating for issues and policies that advance wealth equity. We hold webinars on a monthly basis called Empowering Conversations, as a way to help service providers stay current on trending financial empowerment issues. And it's an opportunity to share tools with you that you can in turn share with the clients you're working with as they work to strengthen their financial health. So some of you may recall that last year in October, we held our summit and we had a terrific breakout session on the student loan debt crisis. And a lot has happened since last fall, so we consider today's session as part 2 to that initial conversation. Student loan debt widens the racial wealth gap and has a disproportionate impact on borrowers of color. And as we all know, student loan debt in this country has reached record-breaking numbers. So it's really important for all of us who work in the asset building field to stay informed of interventions that can benefit the communities we support. I'm very pleased to have Selena Damian, Student Loan Servicing Ombudsman, or Ombudsperson, I should say, with the State of California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, joining us today to lead this session where she will update us on options for student loan debt cancellation and advocacy opportunities. And so with that, Selena, welcome. I will turn it over to you now to continue the conversation.
Thank you, Danisha. Thank you for having me today, for having us today. It is my pleasure to be here to share this important information with everyone here. Thank you for joining us. There is only one of us. Our DFPI student loan program is new, so I'm glad that there are so many people that are working with borrowers that can help really to understand and learn about student loans, everything that's going on, and to help borrowers in the community. So let's get started. Next, please. Well, who are we? We are Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. We are the state's, California's Consumer Protection Agency. If you haven't heard of us, we were previously known as Department of Business Oversight, and we've had a few changes throughout the years. In 2020, under the California Consumer Financial Protection Law, we were given expanded authority to oversee previously unregulated providers of financial services. This included debt collectors, debt relief companies, credit reporting agencies, consumer credit repair companies, and student loan servicers. As such, we now license and examine these companies to ensure compliance, and this includes student loan servicers. We accept and we investigate consumer complaints. We take legal actions when these companies are not in compliance and conduct education and outreach, such as this one, to enhance consumer awareness with the main goal of protecting consumers from fraud and abuse. Next, please. So how much student loan debt do we have in California? There are 4 million Californians that owe approximately $156 billion in federal and private student loan debt. Most of that is federal debt. 35 to 49-year-olds owe the most debt on average, and the average debt load of a California borrower is $37,000. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is when borrowers were still making payments, approximately 500,000 borrowers were behind on paying their loans. As Danisha mentioned, student loan is a huge issue. In the US right now, the student loan debt is now the second highest consumer debt category after mortgages. totaling nearly $2 trillion, and that number continues to grow. You may wonder why, and there's several reasons. One of the reasons is there's been a historical lack of oversight of the administration of federal student loan programs. This includes forgiveness and discharge programs, which many borrowers have relied on or really planned out their futures, thinking down the line after they met certain requirements, they would have the loans discharged. Well, borrowers were faced with an unregulated, complex system plagued with predatory practices from servicers and some lenders, and also for-profit schools. Servicers are the companies that are assisting the borrowers, taking the payments. They are the borrowers' main point of contact when paying their loans. They were found to routinely lose paperwork, misapply payments, be unresponsive, and provide inaccurate information. Servicers were also engaging in forbearance steering, which is a practice of placing borrowers in forbearance instead of offering them better repayment options. Forbearance steering is not only against Department of Education rules, but it also caused borrowers' balances to increase substantially, because what borrowers did not understand or were not being told was that while their accounts, loans were on forbearance, their balances were growing. Interest was accruing on a daily basis. Therefore, months or years down the road, when borrowers went back to start trying to make payments, their balances were completely had ballooned out of control and they were just unmanageable. So this, along with everything else that was going on, has made a significant impact on this student loan debt amount. Next, please. And then adding to those issues, the racial wealth disparities have also caused an outsized impact on students of color. That means that Black and Latino borrowers are most negatively impacted by student loan debt. And this debt that they've been carrying, that they are carrying, has prevented them from making other financial purchases, has affected their credit. They're not able to buy homes. They're not able to help their children with college costs. It just has been a very negative impact on them. 90% of Black and 72% of Latinx students take out college loans in comparison to 66% of white borrowers. Black college graduates owe on average of $25,000 more in student loan debt than white college graduates. Black women have the largest student debt burdens of all. That means they are taking out more student loans and they are carrying higher loan balances. On average, 20 years after starting college, a Black borrower still owes 95% of their original student debt balance, while a white borrower has paid down almost 95% of theirs. Delinquency and default rates are higher for Black and Latinx borrowers, and a borrower in a 75% minority neighborhood is 5 times more likely to fall behind on their student loan payments. Next, please. So borrowers historically do have protections on the federal level. Those are determined by the Higher Education Act of 1965. But these rights, these protections have not been sufficient. We see the numbers and we see the statistics, and they have not really done anything for borrowers. So in California, what we did in 2020, we passed the California Student Borrower Bill of Rights. It was introduced as Assembly Bill 376, and it became effective January 1st, 2021. California is only one of 13 states that has established this advanced legislation to strengthen the oversight of student loan servicers and to protect borrowers. Assembly Bill 376, or the Bill of Rights, applies to student loan servicers doing business in California, including state licensed servicers, as well as banks doing servicers. Again, those servicers are different than the lenders. They are the borrower's main point of contact. They are the ones that are assisting the borrowers when borrowers are calling about their payment options, about staying out of default and things like that. So what it does is it prohibits servicers from engaging in abusive and unfair or deceptive practices, all these practices that I mentioned earlier. It requires that servicers work in the best interest of borrowers and that they provide borrowers accurate information. So a borrower should be able to contact their servicer and they should be able to receive assistance with payments. They should be placed on income-driven repayment plans. And a servicer should be helping a borrower stay out of delinquency and default. That is the main goal. The Bill of Rights also establishes special protections for military borrowers working in public service, older borrowers, and borrowers with disabilities. Servicers should be training their staff, so when a borrower in this group or in this category contacts them, they should be able to provide them the options, inform them about forgiveness plans that they are eligible for. This bill also established my position, the ombudsperson position. There's only a few states that have an advocate or an ombudsperson. Some of them are out of the Financial Protection Agency. Some of them are out of the AG's office or a different agency, but not every state has such position. What I do is I work with state and federal agencies to monitor everything that's going on in student loans, monitor trends, and find out how we can help borrowers here in California through DFPI. I conduct outreach such as this one. I partner with organizations to help educate those that work with borrowers and borrowers as well. I do outreach with parents, with high school students, not just with borrowers that already have loans. So we really want to expand this outreach to include prevention of taking out loans. There is a lack of financial literacy. So a lot of this is also because when borrowers go to school, they really don't understand the impact that student loan debt could have, and they're taking out more than they need, or they just think it's the only option. So education is also a very important aspect of the work that I do. And then I also work directly with borrowers. So I'm answering emails, phone calls every day from borrowers that need help. They don't understand sometimes even the basics of student loans. They don't understand what type of loans they have. They don't understand whether they have federal or private loans, who their lenders, who their servicer is. So I have seen that there is a need for people to really just understand the basics. And it's very important because once they understand, then that we can figure out what options are best for them to help them repay down these loans. DFPI, as the Consumer Protection Agency, will also accept complaints if a servicer is acting unlawfully. So if a borrower is not getting a response from a servicer, if they're not understanding the documents that are being sent, if they're getting misinformation or different information when they call and when they get letters in the email. So many times they just need clarification. We will accept a complaint because a servicer must provide accurate information. That's one of the Bill of Rights provisions. And so we will I advise that they go through us. That way they can get a formal, thorough response. And I monitor all student loan complaints that are coming in, again, because I want to see what servicers are doing and whether or not they are acting lawfully as per the Bill of Rights. Next, please. So now we will jump into updates. So finally, after years of individuals and agencies advocating for student loan reform, something is being done. Now, many wish there was more being done, but these are great steps to move forward. And I think we should all be aware of them because it's the best way that we're all going to help borrowers. And it's just a very positive step forward. COVID happened back in 2019, 2020. So the first extension pause was announced. Under the CARES Act, the federal student loan payments were paused and interest rates were set to 0% for eligible federal student loans, all direct loans. It became effective March 2020, and again, borrowers with direct loans or loans owned by Department of Education. So these are going to be federal loans. Under the payment extension, payment pause, it requires servicers to report to credit reporting agencies as if regularly scheduled payments were occurring, and they are reporting monthly payments of $0 to the credit reporting agency. Delinquency will also is not being reported during the payment pause. Next, please. In August of last year, the 8th payment extension was announced. The payment pause was extended as a result of the ongoing legal battle with the debt relief. This was another way of helping borrowers with almost 3 years of non-payments. With these months, all these months of non-payment are counting towards forgiveness programs. Payments are expected to resume 60 days after the department is permitted to implement the program or the litigation is resolved. If the program has not been implemented and the litigation has not been resolved by June 30th, 2023, payments will resume 60 days after that. So the date of payment restart all depends on the Supreme Court decision when it comes out and what they decide. What borrowers can do now, first of all, update their contact information with the loan servicer and studentaid.gov. Use the loan simulator to find a repayment plan that meets the borrower's needs. A lot may have happened in 3 years. There may have been changes in family size, changes in income. Therefore, it's important that a borrower goes in and sees what payment plan they were on, and they can see what their payment would be once payment restarts. This is a good time for borrowers to either pay down the principal if they want to pay down their balance. There's 0% interest. I've seen a lot of borrowers do that as well. And then it's also if a borrower is working towards PSLF, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness, and they're already on track, this is a good time they could take that money, save it, and put it elsewhere if they know that they are on track for forgiveness. So really there is no need for them to make any payments or try to pay down its balance if it is going to be forgiven. So they can put this balance toward other credit card debt or savings if they need to. So as of this date, as of today, there is no date for restart. We expect September or fall for restart, though that's pretty much what we're thinking, us in the student loan world. But next, please. So I mentioned the Biden relief or the student debt relief. So in August also of last year, the President Biden announced a 10 to 20,000 blanket relief for borrowers. Now, this student debt relief is different than public service loan forgiveness, any other forgiveness or discharge program that has been already available. This was a new announcement. Borrowers with federal student loans could receive up to $20,000 of debt relief if they met certain income criteria and Pell Grant criteria. Well, the student debt relief is currently blocked. The president exercised his executive authority under the HEROES Act, and that authority is being challenged. The Supreme Court has agreed to consider the administration's appeal on February 28th. So next week, people are eagerly waiting for that. In the meantime, the Department of Education is no longer accepting applications. And if a borrower goes to studentaid.gov, this is the message that they'll see. 26 million applications were submitted and 16 million were already processed and approved, ready to go, ready for that forgiveness to be, or that relief to be granted, but it's pending the Supreme Court decision. Next, please. Next. I think it'll come up right now. So what do borrowers do in the meantime? If a borrower has already applied, they should have received a confirmation email from Department of Education. They will keep the applications on file as the litigation goes forward. There's no need for them to reapply, and they can't anyway. As you can see, the applications aren't available. So unless they hear from Department of Ed requesting additional information, they don't need to take any further action. Make sure the contact information is up to date, and all approved applicants will be notified via email. Next, please. And if a borrower hasn't applied yet, what they can do is they can confirm their eligibility status, and then they can confirm their loan status just to ensure that they do qualify. And if when and if the application comes back up, they can apply. So you just have to, if you have a Pell Grant, and meet the income requirements, you will receive the 20,000. If you did not receive a Pell Grant and meet the income requirements, you could get the 10,000. There is it doesn't matter when you receive the Pell Grant, for what year of your education, if you've graduated or not, or for what school, as long as a borrower received it at some point. But if you log on to studentaid.gov, a borrower can see those requirements, more detailed requirements, but basically those are it at this point. So that's what everybody would want to know, their income requirements and their Pell Grant status. Next, please. So public service loan forgiveness, PSLF, there's been a lot of talk about PSLF. There was a waiver last year. We had an outreach campaign to try to reach borrowers. PSLF is still going on. It was a program that was created in 2007 to encourage individuals to enter and remain in public service. Student loan under PSLF, student loan forgiveness is granted after satisfying certain criteria for 10 years or 120 payments. It doesn't necessarily have to be 10 years. The requirements are that you have to have the right type of loan, you have to be on the right type of repayment plan, have the right type of employment, and make the right number of qualifying payments. Next, please. The requirements are for loans, you must have a direct loan. They can be subsidized or unsubsidized. So the only difference between subsidized and unsubsidized is that subsidized loans, the interest was basically paid by the Department of Ed when the borrower was in school, and unsubsidized loans means that the interest was being accrued from the time of disbursement. So unsubsidized loans are just a little bit more costly, but they are still direct loans. Then direct plus loans also qualify. Parent plus loans have to consolidate. So parent plus loans alone do not qualify for PSLF. They have to enroll, or they have to consolidate into a direct loan and then enroll in an income-driven repayment plan. When a borrower with a parent plus loan consolidates, so their count will be reset to 0. So if they've worked 5 years for a qualifying employer and then they decide to consolidate, their count will reset to 0, unfortunately. A borrower must also be paying under the correct repayment plan, which is an income-driven repayment plan. It's the best option. There is a standard plan where they can pay under their schedule. A borrower is scheduled to pay in 10 years, but since the program is 10 years, if they'd be scheduled to pay it after 10 years, they wouldn't have a balance. So an income-driven repayment plan is one that is based on a borrower's income. So a borrower could have lower payments, and it's the best option for PSLF. They have to be under IDR. Then a borrower has to have paid employment. So a borrower can be working for a government organization at any level. It can be state, municipal, city, county. It can be a military as well, or they can be employed by a 501c3, a nonprofit organization. A borrower must be working full-time, which is 30 hours a week. That's what they consider full-time, and it can be in any position. Many borrowers were confused and thought that they'd have to be at a certain level in the agency. It doesn't matter. As long as the employer is a qualifying employer, a borrower can qualify. And then a borrower has to have the qualifying payment. So I said 10 years, but it is counted per month. It's 120 payments, and these payments do not have to be consecutive. So if a borrower decides to take a break or has to take some family leave, or there's just gaps in between, if they're enrolled in the program, they can just come back and pick up where they left off. A borrower can prepay or make lump sum payments for up to 12 months or when their next income-driven repayment certification is due. When you are on an IDR plan, income-driven repayment, you do have to certify on a yearly basis. And then the borrower has to qualify the employment. So these are the PSLF requirements. They sound easy enough, but again, because of the issues that I talked about at the beginning, a lot of borrowers did not qualify. They had the incorrect loan, they weren't under the correct payment plan, their employment didn't qualify, and servicers were not letting them know about this. So a borrower thought that they were on track, that they were at their 10 years, they would have these loans forgiven, and then they were denied. Next, please. Here's the application. It's the certification application, the PSLF application, and the PSLF waiver application. It's all the same. It's all the same. So basically, a borrower, every time they certify, they're going to send in this application. The only thing that I advise on these is that a borrower just make sure it's legible, make sure it's clear, and they read the instructions. It's only 2 pages, but you would be surprised how many denials there are just because of a check mark or maybe something that's not legible, but it's pretty straightforward. A borrower will need the employer's FEIN, federal employer ID number, and if they have more than one employer, they will need, of course, more than one certification or application. Next, please. So in 2021, the PSLF waiver was announced because, again, of all those issues that were being found, and there was a 98, 99% denial rate for borrowers that applied. The limited PSLF waiver ended on October 31st of last year. Mohila, who is the PSLF servicer, and Department of Ed are still processing applications and consolidation. Many borrowers, in order to qualify for the waiver, they needed to consolidate or switch into the correct loan, and then they needed to apply for PSLF. So it was 2 different processes. And the consolidation is processed by Department of Education, and the PSLF application is processed by Mohila. So there's 2 entities trying to talk to each other to get these counts updated. So many borrowers that applied in September, did consolidations and applications in September, October, in the fall, may have not heard anything yet. They are still updating these applications. They're updating the qualifying counts in batches. So just last week, there was a new batch, borrowers receiving either an updated count or an updated or forgiveness. We've seen already a lot of forgiveness that is going through, but if borrowers did apply in the fall, did either the consolidation or the application, they should be hearing from them like in the next few months. So if they haven't heard, it's because they're being processed. So again, it's Mohila and Department of Education just trying to communicate with each other and getting these counts updated. If a borrower wants to know where they're at and they submitted an application maybe in the summer and they've called Mohila, haven't been able to get through, they can actually, this is what I'm advising, they can actually file a complaint through our department to get the information, and Mohila is responding to them. So when a borrower files a complaint through us, or even it could be not even a complaint but an inquiry of, hey, I haven't heard anything about my PSLF status, if they go through us, Mohila has 15 days to respond, and they are responding to borrowers. It's a law, that's the Bill of Rights, that they have to respond within that time. So I am advising borrowers to go through us. Or they can just wait and they can get the count. If they get the counts and they don't agree with the amount, with the qualifying months that they have, or they don't understand it, they can also either contact me or they can just wait for an updated count, because again, there's a lot of adjustments going on. So there's just a lot going on. There was a huge influx of applications in the fall, but there is movement and they are being processed. Ed will also begin making automatic income-driven repayment adjustments, which may increase the PSLF count, and I'm going to talk about that next. California borrowers have already received $2 billion in PSLF, and this was effective December. So I don't know the date as of now because that's when they last updated their PSLF portfolio. So we are seeing these we are seeing a lot of PSLF forgiveness, and we still have a ways to go. So if borrowers have any questions about their status, or if you're working with a borrower that doesn't understand the letters that they're getting because they may be a bit confusing, they can contact me or they can file a complaint through us as well. Next, please. And then some changes, permanent PSLF changes that are taking place in 2023. These permanent changes that are taking place will allow borrowers to obtain credit for late, partial, or lump sum payments if the borrower also certifies qualifying employment. It will allow borrowers or give borrowers credit for certain periods in deferment or forbearance towards PSLF. When consolidating, borrowers will receive a weighted average of existing qualifying payments towards PSLF. Now, this may be a little bit confusing, but sometimes borrowers do have all federal loans, but they have a mix. They have different disbursement dates on their direct loans, or they have older FFEL loans and direct loans. FFEL loans are commercially owned loans that are backed by Department of Ed. So basically they're owned by both a commercial entity and Department of Ed, and they don't fully qualify on their own. Therefore, borrowers have to consolidate. So when they consolidated before, it reset their account back to zero. So under the new laws, when they consolidate, they will receive a weighted average instead of starting at zero, which is great for borrowers because after they've worked for 6-7 years, to lose all that credit was, I mean, it's awful. It adopted a single standard of full-time employment at 30 hours a week. Before, the requirement was whatever the employer considered full-time or 30 hours. Now it's making it 30 hours. It will require employers to give adjunct and contingent faculty credit at least 3.35 hours of work for every credit hour taught. This was really difficult for borrowers that were teaching at college level professors. The employer and the employee were not able to understand what the full-time requirement was. So now they're clarifying that. And it will allow a qualifying employer to certify employment for a contractor in certain situations. In certain states, for example, a doctor that works in a public health facility has to be contracted by law, and therefore they would not qualify for PSLF. So they're allowing for those borrowers to qualify. And then it will codify the reconsideration process for borrowers to have their applications reviewed again if there are errors made in review. So basically, it will give borrowers a chance for their application to be re-reviewed after it's reconsidered. Next, please. And then the one-time account adjustment. So in addition to public service loan forgiveness, so we have our debt relief, you have public service loan forgiveness. There is a lesser known income-driven repayment forgiveness program. Now, I've talked about IDR. It's the payment plan that is based on a borrower's income. Under IDR forgiveness, after 20 to 25 years that a borrower is making payments, their loans are forgiven. Again, because of forbearance steering, the lack of the mismanagement of these programs, borrowers, no one's been keeping track, basically. There were so many transfers of loans that borrowers had no idea that this was even available. They didn't know how many payments they had. So the Department of Education is conducting this adjustment. So they are giving borrowers credit towards IDR and additional PSLF forgiveness for any months in which borrowers made payments regardless of the payment plan. They're giving borrowers credit for 12 or more months of consecutive forbearance or 36 or more months of cumulative forbearance, again, having to do with the forbearance steering, and then months spent in deferment prior to 2013. So what this means is that if a borrower was paying or has had a loan for 20, 25 years, and they've just had these huge gaps of forbearance because, again, the servicers, instead of assisting them, were just putting them on hold or putting their accounts on hold, they're going to be getting credit in addition to the months where they were making payments, and that's going to put them closer to the 20 or 25 years. It just depends on the borrower's loan. PSLF applicants will see an increase in qualifying payments, and we've already seen that. So a borrower that, let's say, has the qualifying employment for 10 years and they paid for 6-7 years, but then had those gaps of forbearance because they were placed by the servicer, or even if they requested it, as long as it wasn't in-school deferment, they're giving them credit to fill in those gaps and bringing them closer to forgiveness. This one-time account adjustment really benefits those borrowers that have had the loans for 20, 25 years, that have those FFEL loans, those older loans that are commercially held loans. They do have to consolidate to receive the benefit. So those borrowers do have to take some action, but this adjustment is really another great it's another great program that will benefit these borrowers, again, that have been paying for long periods of time. And there's a lot of those borrowers that I talk to them on a daily basis, really, and they just see no end in sight for these loans. If they have FFEL direct loans, they've had these loans for, like I said, even 15, 20, 25 years, we can get them on this IDR track to get them counted under the adjustment. If anyone has any questions on this, because it is a little bit confusing, they can always contact me, and we are putting a link at the end of the webinar on one of the slides. Next, please. And just one more thing on that, FSA estimates that the changes will result in immediate debt cancellation for at least 40,000 borrowers under PSLF, and then more than 3.6 million borrowers will receive at least 3.6 additional years of IDR forgiveness. This is going to be automatic, except, again, as I said, except for those FFEL borrowers. Another program that's actually already launched, it's a Fresh Start program, and this is for borrowers that are in default. They're the ones that really have the least help of all. I mean, and these are already borrowers that just, haven't been able to pay their loans. The department estimates that this is going to help 7.5 million borrowers. The loans that are eligible for Fresh Start are any borrowers that have defaulted direct and FFEL loans and Perkins loans held by the Department of Education. The program will last for a period of 1 year from the end of the repayment pause. So as of this date, the payment pause has not ended, but it has started. Some of the Fresh Start benefits is that borrowers will be taken out of default. They won't have access to IDR plans that provide more affordable monthly payments. They'll regain access to Title IV federal student aid. They won't be subject to any collection efforts or collection fees, and they will be eligible to rehabilitate a defaulted federal student loan if they rehabilitated during the payment pause. Next, please. Some credit reporting features for these borrowers is that it will delete delinquent loans from the credit report after 7 years. It will report all other defaulted loans as current and not in collection status, and it will use the loan's original date of delinquency if the borrower becomes delinquent or goes into default again. So it will not reset the borrower's 7-year timeline on their credit report. As of July of last year, Ed removed default notations from the federal CAVR system, and a borrower can contact their guarantee agencies now, and they can opt into the program. So if they opt into the program, then they will be automatically taken out of default. They won't have to start repayment right away because of the payment pause that is currently going on. But this is a really great program to get those borrowers, help them get back on their feet, and help them get back to paying these loans. Next, please. And then some other regulations that will be take effect July of this year. So this first one actually already started. Ed has released new guidelines that will make it easier for borrowers to discharge student loans in bankruptcy. So student loans were dischargeable in bankruptcy, but it was extremely burdensome because borrowers had to demonstrate undue hardship. So the new guidelines simplify the process of showing undue hardship, and it has made it easier for government lawyers, who were the ones who would always basically fight these bankruptcies, to recommend to the court that the debt be discharged. So Department of Ed lawyers were the ones that were basically opposing all these discharge, and now this guideline or this procedure has eliminated that. The new regulations that are going into effect July 2023 have to do with borrower defense discharge, total permanent disability, closed school discharge, and false certification discharge. These are all separate than the discharge and relief programs that I spoke about, but these are other discharges that are available for borrowers that have been defrauded by their schools, borrowers that when their schools have closed when they're attending school, false certification where the school has falsely certified that they qualified for financial aid, and then borrowers that are on total disability, so total and permanent disability. So it has really eased on the requirements for these discharges, which is going to make it easier for borrowers to be granted discharges. It also, they will be eliminating all instances of interest capitalization that is not required by statute. So historically, a capitalization effect occurred after certain events. So interest capitalizations means that the outstanding interest is added to the borrower's principal balance. So it resulted in these borrowers, again, the balance is ballooning. So it has eliminated many capitalization events, which will avoid these balances increasing. And then it has established additional protections, and they are making improvements to the income-driven repay plan. This regulation, this last one it's going to substantially reduce monthly debt burdens for borrowers, especially for low and middle income borrowers, community college students, and borrowers who work in public service. But these don't go into effect until 2024. So the comment period on these recently closed, but these are, again, very important changes to the IDR program. Next, please. And then just real quick, for those of you that do help borrowers that work in the student loan arena, just again, beware of student loan scams. It's a message that we've been really trying to get out there ever since the Biden announcement, and with the PSLF waiver, scammers have increased their activity, and they're contacting borrowers by phone, emails, even certified looking letters that I've seen, and you have to really read the fine print because it does look like they're affiliated with Department of Education. These companies are offering borrowers to get them on debt relief plans. They're offering to do their consolidations for them. They're offering to forgive their loans. The amounts that they're offering are not even correct. So borrowers have been scammed. They have subscribed to these services, and then they don't receive any help at all, because at the end of the day, Department of Education is the only one that can take those actions. So just remind borrowers, and then for yourself, just there's nothing that a company can do for a borrower that they can do on their own, or someone like us can help them with. The loan servicers and the federal government, they're not calling borrowers on the phone. So if there's nonstop calling, just the Department of Ed does not have time to be calling borrowers 3 times a day. Borrowers need to verify the information and research the company, never give out the login information or password, which is going to be the FAFSA, FSA ID, or the servicer login. And then do not subscribe to any monthly service offering help, and then they can contact us if they are not sure whether it's a scam or not. Next, please. And then as part of our Back on Track or student borrower program, we are launching our student loan empowerment program, which is a grant program. Now, under the 2022-23 budget, DFPI received a one-time funding of $7.25 million for a grant program and $2.75 million for a paid outreach and staff support. Our grant program, we are really excited about. It is a grant that is going to go out to borrowers, to programs, nonprofits, legal aid, those agencies that work, those grassroots organizations, agencies that work with borrowers. So community-based organizations, legal aid, to offer support on student loan related issues. We have created a steering committee to help in the development of the program. And the goal is to launch the application in the next few months. So we are working on this. We are very excited because, like as I said at the beginning, there's only one of me, and there is a lot of work needed in this area. And we want these agencies, whether they're a big agency, they've already been in this working in student loans for a while, or it's an agency that hasn't done that much. So we want a broad reach. We want not just in big cities, we want in rural areas. So we really want to be able to reach these borrowers in all capacities, and we will be putting more information out on that. But we're excited, and I will be part of that project. So whoever, whoever the grantee is, I will be working with them as well. Next, please. And I believe this is and then this is just a page with the resources. Some of the resources are DFPI Back on Track, our borrower page, which we update continuously, just depending on what's going on. We do have a YouTube channel with all our webinars that we've done. And then these are the links for things that I've spoken about today. student aid login, which is going to be like the main hub for borrowers, PSLF, the student debt relief, the IDR adjustment, and then my email as well. We are conducting a webinar March 23rd, which is going to be on borrower defense and other discharge options. So we are hosting that one with also with OSAR, which is the Office of Student Aid Relief in California, and Department of Education. So this is going to be a really informative one. If anyone is interested in that, they can subscribe to us as well and then get information on that webinar. Next, please. And I think that was the last one. Yes. Well, we have 10 minutes for Q&A. I know that was a lot of information. Hopefully I answered some of the questions that were sent out, but Katie.
Yeah, hi, Selena.
Hi.
We have a question from Dell. How
Uh-huh.
can we get relief if we are in school today and have been? I don't know if you finished your comment, Dell, or you have anything to add?
Okay, so if they are in school right now and they had like undergrad loans, those may qualify for relief or forgiveness programs, but the periods when borrowers are in school, they're usually in school deferment and they don't get credit. So it just depends on which program, really. So if we're talking about PSLF or forgiveness, those in-school deferment periods are not going to count. If you're talking about the Biden relief, that one, they may qualify just depending on the income and the Pell Grant. It's not going to have anything to do with in-school deferment or in-school time.
Okay, thanks. And Sakina, will the audience be emailed these slides?
Yes, we will take care of that. Absolutely. Everyone will receive a copy. And the session is being recorded. So if you want to listen again, that's an option that will be available to you as well. Are there other questions from the audience? You're welcome to use the raise your hand feature and voice your question, or you can put it in the chat. Katie, do you have your hand up?
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Dell, I see your hand.
Just a minute, I'm allowing the mic feature. Just a minute. That's for attendees. Okay. Okay, so they can talk now if they have any questions.
Dell has a question.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering my first question about, being in school, because I've been in school and I had a loan previously and I went back to school. So I don't know if I qualify to get into, that debt relief program. And I didn't apply for it because I was in school. I didn't know if I could apply. And then the second one was the video here. Will we get this video in an email?
Yes, the video will be emailed along with the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the debt relief program, as soon, again, depending on what the Supreme Court rules or what that decision is, if the application comes back up, as long as the loan was dispersed prior to, I believe it was 2021, June of 2021, a borrower qualified. And then, of course, you met the requirements. So it's not going to, you being in school is not going to disqualify you. Again, just pending this decision. So those were the original requirements.
Okay, that's
Mhm.
why I didn't reply. That's why I did not apply, because I was in school to continue my education. So thank you.
Right. Yeah, you're welcome.
Hopefully it comes out to benefit me. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
Thank you for the question, Dell. Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, and I think I answered the ones that were emailed to me prior, so I think those were answered in the webinar. But if anyone works with borrowers, has any questions, like I said, about letters that they're receiving, or just doesn't understand anything, they can always reach out to me. If you work for an organization and want me to come in and just speak to borrower students or anything, I would be glad to. So really, like I said, one of the goals is just to expand this outreach and just help borrowers. It's the only way. There's so much work to be done, and it is a really complex subject. So it's going to take more than one webinar sometimes for people to really understand.
Absolutely. It is a complex subject, and we're so grateful to you for lending us your time and sharing your expertise with
course.
us today. That was a very, very informative presentation, and appreciate you taking this national topic and helping us understand it from a regional perspective. And we know that there are a number of issues in litigation, but it's also nice to hear about the resources that are available to borrowers right now. So
Yes.
again, thank you, thank you,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
So for all of our participants today, I want to thank you for joining the session. I know that it was useful to you because it was useful to me. And just want to share a plug for our next session, which is next week on Tuesday, February the 28th at 10 a.m. We'll be talking about the new foster youth tax credit. So we look forward to seeing you next week. We're doing that in partnership with the John Burton Advocates for Youth, and we'll have opening remarks from State Treasurer Fiona Ma. I also want to thank Katie, who's behind the scenes, was really instrumental to us organizing the session today. Thank you so much, Katie. Thank you to Alex and Sakina. And if you want more information on DFPI and you want to see what resources they have available, Katie did include a link to their page in the group chat.
How can my school contact her for information?
Your school?
Yeah, we have a department within our school, and they do seminars like this.
Okay.
And I would like for them to have you on to talk to other students at my school.
Yeah, okay. The email, I'll put my email in the chat. What's my email? Jeez.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, and with
Thank you,
that,
everyone.
we'll bring this session to a close. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.